We are here with the lovely men of Midland who, as of 7 hours ago, became Grammy nominees for the very first time.
Yes. So henceforth, it's Grammy-nominated Midland.
Exactly. In all the articles that anybody ever writes again. Maybe Grammy winner come January. How about that?
Oh.
You guys performed on the Today Show today, so I know that you were awake. Tell me about when the news came in, who pointed it out, and how soon did your phone start going kind of crazy?
Our manager got a call from our PR guy, from Jake Basden, and we were literally getting out of the car to go in to do the Today Show, which was a first for us, and we just played the late night show last night. I mean, we just dropped our debut album this year, so this part of the process is so new to me, Jess, and Cam, being on this side of things. So it's almost kind of like watching yourself from 30 feet above or 10,000 feet above. Sometimes it seems like, and then when you get that call, it all jolted back into, made it real. Yeah. And then all of a sudden, the last 4 years since we started this band, all the work, the hours, the sacrifice, the risks, the gamble that we all took, it kind of hits you right in the gut. And it was emotional. We were emotional for sure. It's still emotional.
It's a great, it's the ultimate validation. Sure. Just the nomination is, the win is obviously just like, but the nomination, it's not, doesn't go like that for every award show. It doesn't just being nominated.
I'm going to display the nomination.
Well, they give you, I've been told they give you a thing.
Yeah.
Do they?
Yeah, if you lose.
Okay.
Yeah.
I'm glad that you're
Which
preparing
really nice
for the
loss. I told, well, hey.
I'll take it, man.
Yeah, whatever.
I'll take it. If somebody just gives me a thing, I'm generally pretty excited about that.
Yeah.
Because usually you can hawk that thing on eBay for something.
Etsy.
It's good for a couple meals.
Ooh, yeah, Etsy. I got an Etsy store if you guys are interested. So.
Do you really? You have your own store? Did you know this?
Do we tell them?
Yeah.
It's called...
Where's the camera? Where am I looking at?
Jess and Cam's Hidden Treasures.
Yep.
I'm out, guys.
Let's just say fall fashion
is in.
Hashtag.
There you go.
It's in full
Mark,
effect.
you mentioned the last 4 years of this band, but individually you had all been pursuing music much longer. What is the validation to say at this point in our lives we figured out the right effect, the right sound, and then, to get the affirmation of this morning and say somebody heard it and they also all really like it?
The first affirmation was just when you're first starting out is to get people that want to play music with you. I remember that process. I mean, I had a friend, a buddy that we were in a band with, and I remember when he first reached out and he's like, "You're pretty good, man. We should play together." And then, Cam and Jess were playing together. Was that 13 years ago?
It was like 10 years ago, yeah.
Something like that. A long time ago with these guys. Cam was still a teenager. He's 55 now.
Yeah. I'm in a time warp.
Yeah, music has been such an integral part of our lives, both as fans, through the life experience, and then live experience as well, and then playing it. It's just I think if anybody ever told you how much struggle and how much failure and really how much toil and work and heartache really does go into it, I don't know if I would have pursued it, to be honest with you. And
ignorance is bliss when you start out doing anything.
And it's necessary. I think if anybody knew what it takes, it's just a lot of really putting yourself out there and being brave enough to want to grow and to want to surround yourself by people more talented, smarter, maybe with a better musical knowledge. And that's what I've always sought myself. And that's what I have with Jess and Cam. I mean, these guys can, when it comes to music history, when it comes to, musicianship, et cetera, these guys run circles around me, so.
I love that. This is sort of the latest in a long line of, I'm sure, pinch me moments. Over the last year, you guys have had a #1 song. You've been on enormous tours like Willie and Tim and Faith. You've performed on late night shows. Which one was the one where you realized, oh my God, it's finally working. We're taking off. Like, people are hearing this.
Well, we got to play the Ryman this year.
That's cool.
Which was kind of the most. It's the most, And that was a moment where we were backstage looking at each other, going. It was just like a year ago that we were taking the tour at the Ryman. For all of those who don't know, the Ryman is kind of like the mother church of country music. It's in Nashville, and it's this old building with these stained glass windows and these pews.
Actual
and it's
church.
where it's an actual old church, and where they used to do the Grand Ole Opry broadcast from. So there's just been, the history there is incredible. And when we first came to Nashville to start writing, we took the tour and saw the artifacts there and stood in front of the stage and just kind of had a moment like, oh man, you ever think we'll be here? And it wasn't but like maybe a year and a half later that we got to play on that stage. And so it's things like that that keep you, puts fuel in your tank, kind of, you know, those things. That and really, you know, on any given night you look out and you see that there's somebody in the audience that's really connecting and having a good time, you know.
Like this audience.
Yeah.
I'm looking at you,
Exactly.
ma'am.
You know, people make a lot of comments about where your music is written from and the old country sounds that we're getting to hear again. And it starts even before that. The name Midland obviously comes from a Dwight Yoakam song. Can you talk about like the necessity of his music to you guys, or where that decision was made?
Yeah, I mean, Dwight Yoakam is he's sort of the inventor of balls to the wall honky tonk music. I mean, he kind of infused the old style of country music with a sort of almost punk rock, new wave, very rock and roll thing that he was doing in L.A. And we, at our essence, you know, we're a bar band. We have a high energy live show, and we play with the full band. We're big fans of Bruce Springsteen and people who sort of put on an electrifying show. We really want to give the audience their money's worth if they're going to come out and see us play. So we were talking about this the other day. I was saying, you know, Midland, kind of one of our parents is like country music and one's rock and roll. I mean, we're a band. That already is a sort of a rare thing in country music. I mean, there are bands, you know, Alabama is a big influence in harmony groups. But then you have people like the Eagles. People compare us to the Eagles. That's a high bar. Their harmonies are perfect. Their records are perfect. But you know, when people started saying that, I was like, wow, it made us want to strive to that sort of level.
That's awesome.
You know.
And when you listen to the album On the Rocks, you know, I think it's a great snapshot of where we are as a band. And there's a little bit of everything. There's the old school stuff like Lonely for You Only that does sound like a George Strait song. And then you've got, you know, More Than a Fever that is very much in the lane of the Eagles, but also exists in the modern times. And that's what Dwight did, and that's what we're interested in do. When this band started, we were never interested in being a derivative 1970s or 80s cover band. You know, we wanted to, of course, we're taking a cue from all of our heroes, but then we're bringing it into the modern sound. And I feel like we really accomplished that on this album.
I love that. Has anybody met Dwight yet? Has anybody
Yeah.
told him the name of this band?
We got to open up for him. That was like the very beginning of the first break that we had outside of just playing in the honky tonks in Texas. We were asked to open up for him in Texas. And one show led to 5 or 6 shows, and we kind of chased him around Texas and the West Coast. I think he was made aware of our obsession with him, which is why they placed guards around him anytime we were around. But we became close friends with his guitar player, Eugene, who we spent countless hours talking about music and just the history of rock and roll and country music, and gleaned stories from him about Dwight, who is, you know, I don't think that there's any.
He's eccentric.
Common knowledge. He's eccentric. He's kind of off on his own thing.
He created his own thing. I mean,
Yeah.
he's completely his own thing.
Totally.
He's Dwight Yoakam. There's not another Dwight Yoakam.
Right.
And if you can create an identity like that as an artist, I mean, that's sort of the best case scenario. You know, you're just kind of in your own world.
Yeah.
And he definitely did that.
Mark, you mentioned that it was an intentional thing to still be contemporary, that you guys are rooted in these sounds, but you're also very much updating the sound of 2017. I'm sure at some point someone mentioned these sounds are very atypical for country radio. How did you find the balance or the sureness to sort of still push forward with what you guys wanted to do?
You know, I think in the recording process, each one of us has a pretty strong opinion and a sharp ear,
Yeah.
and we're not interested in just trying to replicate and do something that's already been done before. We really do want to, again, like Jess just marked upon. Dwight took, of course, cues again from his heroes. I mean, the Bakersfield sounds coming in there. Obviously, a lot of Elvis influence, but he made it his own, and that's what this journey has been about since the four of us got together, is taking our collective influences and backgrounds in music and our collective voices as songwriters, and then translating that into our sound. And that process has included, of course, our collaborators with Shane McAnally, Josh Osborne, and Dan Huff. And to be honest with you, I think really Shane, Josh, and all of us, we had leaning really heavy towards the country side of things. And then when you brought Dan in, again, to touch upon what these guys are saying, we're country and rock and roll. And Dan Huff is, if you guys don't know, is one of the greatest guitarists in Nashville, and a rock and roll guy, comes from the West Coast. And
He comes.
well, he was playing out in LA when that's when he built his career out there. And when Dan came in with the West Coast influence and with a little bit of a rock and roll background, sonically, that's where it started to really gel together, and that's the sound that we found on this album, and on everything from Lonely Free Only to Burnout to Drinking Problem to Electric Rodeo. It's yes, there's hints of modern traditional, but I really do think sonically we were trying to use the most modern methods of finding what's possible to sound today in 2017.
I love that. You mentioned that you guys have roots as a bar band. Obviously, now you've since played Gillette Stadium with Kenny Chesney. What does transitioning to those huge rooms do for your music? Is it changing you guys as performers, or the kind of music you want to write?
Yeah.
I mean, it's you take that knowledge that you learned from playing in bars, and that's where we learned how to play together. It's where we clocked those hours on stage, and you work up a shtick, you work up things that you figure out that work in the bar setting, and you just try to translate that into a stadium. I mean, it's like it's definitely something that's new. That's by far the biggest show we've played.
Well, like Make a Little, right? I mean, that was directly informed from our playing our live show, right?
Oh, was it?
Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, if you watch Bruce Springsteen, who we are, we're students of him and have studied his craft. And he is somebody who can take his band and make it just as exciting at a bar for 50 people, and then have that go to the O2 Arena and play for 100,000 people. And very little changes in between. And if you can do that without fireworks and levitating and spinning drum machines and whatnot, which we're working on because we really like that
What's
stuff.
wrong with that, man?
Then I feel like you really are. I consider him the greatest live performer of all time.
And new Broadway star.
And new Broadway star. We were
extended
going to try and go see him on this trip, but that
Couldn't afford it.
yeah.
Yeah, I was going to say, I wish you luck with that. When you think about those rooms that you've now gotten to play with some of those big artists, is that the size career Midland wants? Do you guys want to book those rooms?
We want to touch as many people figuratively as possible.
And now's a good time to clarify that,
Yeah.
given the way it's going.
we want to spread our seed figuratively as far and wide as we can.
Yeah.
I think Cam just figured out how to get away with that, but figuratively
Yeah,
after all
just
that.
Figuratively.
Yeah, I mean-
Everybody could learn that.
I think we want to do
exactly.
both. I think we
Yeah.
want to play in big stadiums, and we want to continue to play, be able to play in small bars and intimate settings, and they both have their own thing that's special, and
The Troubadour was I think one that will always stick out in our minds and our hearts as that was a spiritual experience. I mean, it's small. If you guys have never been to the world famous Troubadour out in Hollywood, in West Hollywood, when you get that close to the audience, it's incredible. And that's what Cam's talking about, to be able to, have that same experience where the audience literally, you feel that connection at a little bar when they're right here. And how do you do that in a stadium? It is that's an art in itself.
Yeah. If you can do it in a stadium, though, like I've seen Bruce do, then you can't, like, that takes time, you know, and you've done it right, you know.
We hope that we're on the very beginning of this journey.
Good. Awesome. Unfortunately, that's all the time for me. We're going to take a couple questions from the audience before we break.
I heard tonight that you guys, some of you had played with each other before you formed as a band.
Figuratively.
Figuratively. And I don't know what you, sort of ambiguous there. Do you mean like spreading your music literally and figuratively, or your seed literally or figuratively?
Both. Wait, what's the question?
Anyway, when you all started playing together, when did you know, hey, we're a band, hey, this could be something?
Sonic Ranch, when we had an idea that was really championed by Cameron, and you know, Cameron's definitely the most organized, and he has his shit together probably more than us. So, you know, we saw an idea, and when it came together at Cam's wedding, you know, again, we all have varied backgrounds. Again, these guys played together for a long time. Cam and I played together for a long time, but it didn't really work as often. You know, sometimes with just two people, you clash a little bit, and then with the three, you know, it's a democracy, and it just became this thing. And we said, well, let's seek it out. Let's try. It was just three artists, three creative types going out there and just rolling the dice, going for the experience. And
It's a record. It's a recording studio out in the middle of nowhere, pretty much outside of El Paso in West Texas, and you hole up there. And we recorded for 10 days these demos that we took around after that and shopped around, and were able to influence people to work with us over the next couple of years. But as Mark said,
You might say bamboozled
people
working with us.
swindled, if you will.
but there was we worked hard, man. We were recording for 16 hours a day. We were drinking. We were fighting. We were learning how to collaborate, and we realized early on that we were really good at fighting, but getting through that, and that's been something you have to. I mean, this is a relationship. A band is always a relationship, but then when you add in creativity, which comes from this deep sacred place, you know, and it's you put an idea out there, and you want everybody to be like, yeah, that's the idea, and sometimes that's not the idea, and you have to individually have to realize that in a band, you're not always going to be right. But if you're willing to subdue your ego a little bit, maybe sometimes sit back and shut up and be like, well, maybe they're right and you can grow. So I think the three of us realized that the music and the experience of the collaborating, because it wasn't all, most of the time we were hugging and laughing and having the time of our lives. But I think that's what makes us great, is that we're at any given time okay with not being right, you know what I mean? And servicing the song, and servicing the record, and servicing the full potential of this band.
That's awesome. We've got another one back here.
Hi. So with the success of your debut album, do you feel like, have you thought about what your songs for your next album, and do you feel like there's more pressure now to have it be as successful?
No, we're just so lucky now, if we get to do another record, which it looks like we might, that we have now it's a kind of a bigger platform and a wider audience to touch people. Figuratively. Yeah, I don't feel any pressure. You continue to grow as an artist and play out on the road, and you're finding new sounds and evolving as your sound as a band, and so I think that's just a really neat part of the process of spending almost every single day, every hour together.
That's awesome. And then we have one more.
Hi. So,
Hello.
so if you three went back in time to all those hours in the recording studio, and
We have gone back in time.
ooh, and you told your younger selves that today you guys would be nominated for a Grammy, what would you think your reactions be then?
I'd laugh.
Yeah, I don't think I would have believed it. I mean,
Well, look, let me put you in the spot, Jess. You're sitting in the recording booth, and you show up.
ooh.
What you're supposed to do when you see your doppelganger is
Well, I'd
you
be very excited to see
have to
myself.
off them first off. We know that
Outside of
from the
myself.
movies. Okay, that's the rule.
from the
There can only
Prestige,
be
right?
one.
No, I mean, I think what Mark was kind of saying earlier was that, I mean, there's no guide for this path. You know, I mean, if you're going to be a doctor, you kind of know what to expect. There's a lot of school, and you sort of know how that looks. But with a band, you know, everybody has a different path, and there's different ways to do it, and it's every day is strange and new, you know. But I don't think any of us would have, especially not at Sonic Ranch, because we were just doing that for the love of the music. You know, we scraped together money and went out there, and we wanted to record songs, and we didn't have it. I mean, we were like, wouldn't it be cool if we started this band, you know? So the idea of getting a Grammy nomination back then.
Not specific like that, but I think every person that aspires to reach the pinnacle of their profession.
Mark was thinking about Grammys at Sonic Ranch, I guess.
Not the Grammys, but I will say this: I did have a moment that it still it almost is spooky. I remember sitting in the vocal booth doing. I can't say the master vocals, but because they were just demos at the Sonic Ranch. But I remember sitting in that vocal booth and singing over these tracks that we had been working on, and I remember just getting almost having like a vision. I had a vision of playing back. My big vision was playing back in my little tiny town at the racetrack, at the rodeo grounds, and like having a stadium full of 2,000 people. I was like, oh, I had like goosebumps thinking about that. But I know right from that get-go from the Sonic Ranch that I had a love for playing music with these guys, and I just really, really wanted to do it and make it happen. And, I just remember thinking, God damn it, like I want to do this. I want to make this work. And I think all of us had that. That was our takeaway, and that's the fortitude that was kind of forged out there, and that's what's driven us along to get.
So the answer is no from Mark in the short.